Sometimes the worst moment of your life becomes the doorway to everything you've been waiting for. Mara Collins thought her blind date would be awkward, maybe boring. She never imagined it would become the night a stranger's kindness shattered every wall she'd built around her heart, or that the cruelest rejection would lead to the greatest love she'd ever known. This is the story of a cafe, a coward, and the single father who refused to let cruelty win. Stay with me until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Mara's story travels across the world. The Rosewood Cafe smelled like cinnamon and coffee beans, a warm embrace against the February cold that pressed against the windows. Mara Collins sat in the corner booth, her hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea that had long gone lukewarm. The ceramic felt rough under her fingertips, grounding her as anxiety spiraled through her chest like a tightening spring. She'd arrived 20 minutes early. Classic Mara. Always early, always prepared, always hoping that being punctual would somehow make her more worthy of someone's time. Her friend Jasmine had set up this blind date 3 weeks ago, gushing about Damon Reeves like he was some kind of miracle. "He's perfect for you," Jasmine had insisted, her voice bright with certainty. "He's got a great job, he's funny, and he specifically said he wants to meet someone genuine, someone real." Real. Mara had clung to that word like a lifeline. She glanced down at her outfit, a deep burgundy sweater that she'd bought specifically for tonight, paired with dark jeans that actually fit comfortably. She'd spent 45 minutes on her makeup, not trying to transform herself, but attempting to highlight the features she actually liked. Her hazel eyes with their flecks of gold, her full lips, the curve of her cheekbones. Her dark brown hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, and she'd even put on the silver earrings her mother had given her for her 28th birthday. "You look beautiful," she whispered to herself, a mantra she'd been repeating since leaving her apartment. But the words felt hollow, borrowed from self-help books and therapy sessions, never quite sinking deep enough to take root. The cafe was busy for a Wednesday evening. A couple in their 60s shared a slice of cheesecake near the window, feeding each other bites with the comfort of decades together. A group of college students occupied the large table by the bookshelf, their laughter punctuating the soft jazz playing overhead. And one table over from Mara, a man sat alone with a cup of black coffee and a half-eaten turkey sandwich, occasionally glancing at a worn paperback while his phone lay face down beside his plate. Mara had noticed him when she first arrived, dark hair starting to gray at the temples, strong jaw, eyes that looked tired in a way that suggested life experience rather than a late night. He wore a simple flannel shirt over a white t-shirt, and there was something solid about him, something steady. But she'd quickly looked away, focusing on her own nervous energy, on the speech she'd been rehearsing in her head about her job as a library cataloger, about her love of old movies and hiking trails. The door chimed and Mara's heart lurched. Damon Reeves walked in like he owned the place. Confident stride, expensive leather jacket, hair styled with the kind of precision that suggested he spent more time in front of a mirror than most people spent eating breakfast. He was objectively handsome, sharp features, bright blue eyes, the kind of symmetrical face that looked good in photographs. Jasmine had shown her his picture, but seeing him in person sent a fresh wave of insecurity crashing over her. He scanned the cafe, his eyes sliding past her once before returning with what looked like confusion. Mara raised her hand in a small wave, and she watched his expression shift, from confusion to recognition to something else. Something that made her stomach drop. Disappointment. Damon approached the table slowly and Mara stood, smoothing down her sweater with damp palms. "Damon? Hi, I'm Mara. It's so nice to finally—" "Yeah." He cut her off, not extending his hand, not returning her smile. His eyes traveled down her body and back up in a way that made her feel like she was being appraised and found lacking. "You're Mara." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "Should we sit?" Mara gestured to the booth, trying to keep her voice steady, trying to pretend she hadn't just seen his face do that thing, that flicker of distaste that she'd learned to recognize in middle school, in high school, in every failed date and awkward interaction since. Damon remained standing. "Listen, I'm just going to be honest here because I think that's more respectful than wasting both our time." The cafe noise seemed to dim. Mara could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Your friend Jasmine showed me pictures of you, Damon continued, his voice carrying across the space between them, loud enough that heads were starting to turn. But those pictures must have been, what, from a few years ago? Because you look nothing like them now. Heat flooded Mara's face, not the pleasant warmth of a blush, but the burning shame of exposure. Those pictures are from 6 months ago. I haven't... 6 months? Damon laughed, sharp and cruel. Seriously? Because you've clearly gained 30 pounds since then? 40? The couple eating cheesecake stopped mid-bite. The college students fell silent. Even the barista paused in wiping down the espresso machine. Damon, please. Mara's voice came out small, strangled. Can we just sit down and talk? Get to know each other? Get to know each other. He shook his head, a smirk playing at his lips like this was all some kind of joke. Look, I'm going to be real with you because nobody else apparently will. I work out 6 days a week. I watch what I eat. I take care of myself. And I'm sorry, but I'm just not attracted to someone who clearly doesn't care about their health or their appearance. Mara felt something inside her chest begin to crack. I do care. I exercise. I eat well. This is just how your body is? Damon's voice rose another notch. Your body is the result of your choices, sweetheart. And honestly, Jasmine did me dirty by setting this up. I told her I wanted to meet someone who takes pride in how they look. Someone who... That's enough. The voice came from the table next to them. Low, controlled, but carrying an edge of steel that cut through Damon's tirade like a blade. The man with the flannel shirt and tired eyes was standing now, his book closed, his full attention fixed on Damon. Damon turned, irritation flashing across his face. Excuse me? This is a private conversation. Private? The man stepped closer, and Mara noticed he was taller than Damon by several inches, broader in the shoulders. But it wasn't his size that made Damon take a half step back. It was something in his eyes, a quiet intensity that suggested he'd seen enough of life's ugliness to have no patience for this particular brand of cruelty. You're humiliating this woman in the middle of a crowded cafe. There's nothing private about it. Look, man, I don't know who you think you are, but I'm someone who's teaching a 7-year-old girl that how you treat people matters more than how they look. The man's voice remained steady, but Mara could see his hands were clenched at his sides. And right now, I'm watching you treat someone with incredible disrespect, and I'm thinking about what I'd do if someone spoke to my daughter the way you're speaking to this woman. Damon's face flushed red. Your daughter? What the hell does your daughter have to do with this? Just being honest. I'm not attracted to fat girls. That's not a crime. The word hung in the air like a slap. Mara felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she blinked them back furiously. She would not cry. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Not for him. You need to leave. The man's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. Right now. I was already leaving. Damon turned back to Mara, and she saw something vicious in his smile. Jasmine's phone number is officially blocked. And just some friendly advice? Maybe try a salad once in a while. Hit the gym. Download a calorie-counting app. Because if you ever want to find someone decent, you're going to have to put in the work. He turned on his heel and walked toward the door. And as he passed the college students' table, one of them muttered something that sounded like asshole loud enough for everyone to hear. Damon didn't break stride, just pushed through the cafe door and disappeared into the February night. Mara stood frozen, her legs trembling, her vision blurring. The entire cafe was looking at her now, some with pity, some with anger on her behalf, some with that uncomfortable secondhand embarrassment that made people look away quickly. She needed to leave. She needed to get out before the tears came, before she completely fell apart in front of all these strangers. Hey, the man's voice was gentle now, so different from the steel it had carried moments before. Are you okay? It was possibly the stupidest question anyone had ever asked her, and yet the kindness in it nearly broke her. I'm fine, she managed, grabbing her purse with shaking hands. I should go. Wait. He moved slightly, not blocking her path, but standing in a way that made her pause. Please don't let him chase you away. You were here first. You deserve to finish your tea, to sit in peace. He's the one who should be running away ashamed, not you. Mara looked up at him properly for the first time. Up close, she could see that his eyes were a deep brown, warm despite the hardness that had been in them moments ago. There were lines around them, smile lines, worry lines, the map of a life lived. He looked like he was in his mid-30s, and there was something in his face that spoke of kindness worn down by hardship, but not destroyed by it. I can't. Her voice broke on the words. Everyone's staring. Everyone just watched me get rejected because I'm too fat for... She couldn't finish the sentence. Everyone just watched a cruel man reveal exactly who he is, the man corrected quietly. And if they're thinking anything at all, they're thinking how much better you deserve. You don't know me. Mara clutched her purse tighter. You don't know what I deserve. You're right, I don't know you. He held her gaze, and she saw no pity there, just a straightforward honesty that was somehow more comforting than any platitude could have been. But I know you showed up here tonight. You put yourself out there, made yourself vulnerable, hoped for connection. That takes courage. And I know he tried to destroy that courage with cruelty, and I know you don't deserve that. Nobody does. A tear escaped, sliding down Mara's cheek before she could stop it. She swiped at it angrily. I need to go. Okay. He stepped back, giving her space. But before you do, can I ask you something? Mara waited, not trusting her voice. Have you eaten dinner? The question was so unexpected that she actually looked at him in confusion. What? Dinner. Have you eaten? He gestured to his table. I've got half a turkey sandwich I'm not going to finish, and the lasagna here is actually incredible. And I'm sitting alone on a Wednesday night because my daughter is at her grandmother's house. And honestly, I could use the company of someone who seems like a genuinely kind person, which is a quality that's in pretty short supply based on what I just witnessed. Mara stared at him, stared at Mount. Are you asking me to have dinner with you? I'm asking if you'd be willing to sit with a stranger who thinks that guy was an absolute jackass and who believes you deserve to end this evening with at least one decent conversation. He offered a small smile. No expectations, no pressure. Just two humans who've both had long days sharing a meal. If you want to leave, I completely understand. But if you want to stay, I promise you a Damon-free zone and someone who will actually listen when you talk. Mara's mind raced. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to get to her car, to drive home and bury herself under blankets and never agree to another blind date as long as she lived. But there was something about this man, this stranger who'd stood up for her when he didn't have to, who'd seen her at her most humiliated and was still looking at her like she was a person worth knowing. I don't even know your name, she said finally. Ethan. He extended his hand. Ethan Ward. She looked at his hand for a long moment, then slowly reached out and took it. His grip was warm, firm without being crushing, the handshake of someone who meant what they said. Mara Collins. It's nice to meet you, Mara Collins. Ethan released her hand and gestured to his table. So what do you say? Will you let me prove that not all men are complete disappointments? Despite everything, despite the humiliation still burning in her chest, despite the tears still threatening to fall, despite the voice in her head screaming that she should just go home, Mara felt the tiniest spark of something that might have been hope. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Ethan's smile widened, genuine and warm. Okay. He pulled out the chair across from his, waiting until she sat before returning to his own seat. The simple courtesy of it, the respect in that small gesture, made Mara's throat tighten with emotion. The cafe's ambient noise slowly returned to normal as people realized the drama was over, conversations resuming, the espresso machine hissing back to life. But Mara still felt exposed, raw, like her skin had been stripped away. For what it's worth, Ethan said, settling back into his chair and pushing the remainder of his sandwich to the side, I think your sweater is a great color on you, brings out the warmth in your eyes. Mara blinked, caught off guard. Oh, thank you. I bought it specifically for tonight, actually. Then it definitely worked. You look lovely. He said it matter-of-factly, the way someone might comment on the weather, which somehow made it more believable than any effusive compliment could have been. You don't have to say that. Mara fiddled with her cold tea mug. I know how I look. I know what I am. And what are you? Ethan leaned forward slightly, his expression curious rather than challenging. Fat. The word felt like glass in her mouth. The word he used, the thing that makes me unworthy of... She stopped, shaking her head. Sorry, you don't want to hear this. You're just trying to be nice, and I'm dumping all my issues on a complete stranger. Mara. Ethan waited until she looked at him. I'm not just trying to be nice. I stood up because what he did was wrong, yes, but I asked you to stay because I actually want to talk to you. And if you need to process what just happened, if you need to be angry or sad or hurt, that's okay. I've got nowhere else to be, and my therapist keeps telling me I need to work on my active listening skills anyway. Despite herself, Mara felt her lips twitch toward a smile. You see a therapist? Every Tuesday afternoon for the past 2 years. Ethan signaled to the waitress, who approached with a sympathetic smile. Can we get a menu for my friend here, and I'll take the lasagna special if it's still available. Of course, honey. The waitress, her name tag read Sharon, set down a menu in front of Mara and squeezed her shoulder gently. That man was trash, sweetheart. Don't you let him take up another second of your thoughts. Can I get you something to drink? On the house. Hot chocolate? Mara's voice came out uncertain. Extra marshmallows? Please. Sharon winked and headed back to the counter, and Mara realized that this small kindness from a waitress, this gesture of solidarity, was making her eyes water again. She's right, you know, Ethan said, about him being trash and about not wasting your thoughts on him. It's not that easy. Mara opened the menu without really seeing it. When you've heard things like that your entire life, it's not just one person's opinion. It's confirmation of what you already believe about yourself. Tell me. Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. What do you believe about yourself? Mara looked up at him, and something about the honest interest in his eyes made her want to tell the truth. The real truth, not the defensive walls she usually built. That I'm too much, too big, too much space, too much presence. That I'll always be the one people settle for when they can't get what they really want. That love, real love, isn't meant for bodies like mine. The words hung between them, raw and painful, and Mara waited for Ethan to flinch, to look away, to offer some hollow reassurance that they both knew was a lie. Instead, he nodded slowly. I lost my wife 3 years ago, cancer. She was 31 years old, beautiful in every conventional sense. Thin, blonde, looked like she could be on magazine covers. And I watched her waste away, watched her body betray her, watched her struggle with feeling like she was disappearing. You want to know what I learned? Mara nodded, unable to speak. That bodies are just containers. Important containers, yes. They carry us through life, they deserve care and respect. But they're not the sum of who we are. My wife was brilliant, funny, stubborn as hell, terrible at parallel parking, and she made the world better just by being in it. Her body failed her, but she never failed at being exactly who she was. Ethan's voice caught slightly. And when I see someone like that guy, someone who thinks a person's worth can be measured by their dress size or their gym membership, I think about how small his world must be, how many incredible people he'll never know because he's too busy judging their packaging. Sharon returned with a steaming mug of hot chocolate topped with a mountain of marshmallows, setting it down in front of Mara with another warm smile. Lasagna will be right up, hun. Mara wrapped her hands around the mug, letting the heat seep into her cold fingers. I'm sorry about your wife. Thank you. Ethan's expression softened. Her name was Claire, and she'd probably be furious with me right now for using her story to make a point, but she'd also be the first person to tell you that you deserve better than tonight's disaster. Did you know? Mara found herself asking. Did you know from the beginning that she was sick? No. We had 7 years together before the diagnosis and then 14 months after. Ethan traced his finger along the rim of his coffee cup, and every single day of those 14 months, I would have given anything, everything, for just one more day with her. Because it was never about her body. It was about her laugh when I said something ridiculous. The way she'd argue with me about plot holes in movies, how she'd sing off key while cooking breakfast. That's what I miss. That's what mattered. You must miss her terribly. Every day. Ethan met her eyes. But I've also learned that shutting down, closing off, refusing to connect with people, that doesn't honor her memory. She'd want me to keep living, keep meeting people, keep being open to whatever comes next, even if that means getting involved in a stranger's terrible date situation in a cafe on a Wednesday night. Mara felt herself smile for real this time, small but genuine. Is this your usual Wednesday night activity, rescuing women from bad blind dates? First time, actually. Ethan grinned. Usually I'm just reading terrible mystery novels and trying not to text my daughter every 5 minutes to make sure she's okay at her grandmother's. How old is she? 7. Her name's Luna. Ethan's whole face transformed when he talked about his daughter, lighting up with a fierce pride and love that made him look younger. She's everything. Smart, creative, empathetic to a fault. Also stubborn, dramatic, and convinced that vegetables are a personal attack against her existence. Sounds like a typical 7-year-old. Mostly, yeah. But she's also had to grow up faster than she should have. Losing her mom, watching me try to figure out single parenting, dealing with some bullying at school last year. Ethan's expression darkened slightly. That's actually why I reacted so strongly to what happened with your date. Luna came home crying a few months ago because some kids were making fun of her for being too skinny, for not having a mom, for wearing hand-me-down clothes. And I realized that cruelty isn't just something that happens to adults. We teach it, we model it. And when I see someone like Damon think it's acceptable to tear another person down based on their appearance, I think about what kind of world we're creating for kids like Luna. Sharon returned with a plate of lasagna that smelled incredible, the cheese still bubbling, and set it down in front of Ethan along with a second plate and fork. In case you two want to share, she said with a knowing smile. After she left, Ethan pushed the plate to the center of the table. Seriously, this is way too much for one person. Help me out? Mara hesitated, and she could feel the familiar voice in her head, the one that sounded like every diet book, every judgmental relative, every cruel comment she'd ever received. Don't eat in front of him. He'll think you're a pig. You already look fat. Why would you make it worse? But there was another voice too, smaller and quieter. He asked you to stay. He's sharing his food. He's treating you like a person. Okay, she said, and picked up the extra fork. The first bite was perfect. Rich tomato sauce, layers of pasta, herbs she couldn't quite identify. Comfort food in its purest form. And as she ate, something inside her chest began to unknot, just slightly. So, Ethan said, taking his own bite, tell me about you. And not the bio you prepared for Damon. Tell me something real, something you actually want to share. Mara considered this, chewing slowly. I work at the Central Library. I'm a cataloger, which basically means I organize and classify books. It's not glamorous, but I love it. Being surrounded by stories all day, knowing that I'm helping connect people with the books they need, it feels meaningful. That does sound meaningful. Ethan looked genuinely interested. Do you have a favorite section, like if you could only work in one part of the library for the rest of your life? Historical fiction. Mara didn't even have to think about it. I love stories that take real events and humanize them, that show you what life was really like for ordinary people in extraordinary times. There's something powerful about understanding that people 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago felt the same things we feel now. Love, fear, hope, heartbreak. What's the last book that really stuck with you? They talked through the entire plate of lasagna, through a second hot chocolate for Mara and a refill of coffee for Ethan. They talked about books and movies, about the challenges of single parenting and the loneliness of being perpetually single. Ethan told her about Luna's obsession with drawing. She's currently working on a graphic novel about a superhero whose power is making people tell the truth. And Mara found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time all night. She told him about her parents' divorce when she was 12, about her older brother who lived in Seattle and called once a month out of obligation rather than genuine connection. About her best friend Jasmine, who despite tonight's disaster, really was trying to help in her own misguided way. She means well, Mara explained. She's just one of those people who thinks being in a relationship is the answer to everything. She's been with her boyfriend for 5 years, and they're happy. So in her mind, I just need to find my person, and all my problems will magically disappear. And you don't believe that? I believe that being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel smaller. Mara surprised herself with the certainty in her voice. I spent my whole life trying to shrink myself, literally and figuratively, trying to take up less space, be less loud, need less attention, and I'm tired of it. I'd rather be alone and whole than partnered and constantly diminished. Ethan nodded slowly. That's wise and brave. A lot of people settle because they're afraid of being alone. Are you? Mara asked. Afraid of being alone? Sometimes. Ethan's honesty was refreshing. It gets quiet after Luna goes to bed. The house feels too big, too empty. And there are moments when I miss having a partner, someone to share the daily details with, someone to make decisions with, someone to just sit in comfortable silence with. But I'm also really careful about who I let into Luna's life. She's already lost one parent. I can't introduce her to someone unless I'm absolutely sure it's going to last. That must be really hard for both of you. It is. Ethan glanced at his watch, then looked surprised. We've been talking for over 2 hours. Mara checked her own phone and was shocked to find he was right. The cafe had emptied out significantly. Only a few other customers remained, and Sharon was wiping down tables in the corner. I should probably let you go. I'm sure you have work tomorrow, and Mara? Ethan reached across the table, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his hand. I'm really glad you stayed tonight. And I know this whole evening started with something awful, but I hope you're ending it feeling at least a little bit better than you did when that jackass walked out. I am. Mara realized it was true. The humiliation was still there, a dull ache in her chest, but it was no longer the only thing she felt. Thank you for standing up for me, for asking me to stay, for treating me like I was worth talking to. You are worth talking to. This was one of the best conversations I've had in months. Ethan pulled out his phone. Would it be okay if I got your number? Not for dating or anything pressure-filled, just as someone who genuinely liked to stay in touch. Maybe grab coffee sometime. Continue the conversation. Mara hesitated, and she could feel all her old defenses trying to rise up, all the reasons to say no, all the ways this could go wrong. But she thought about the last 2 hours, about how seen she'd felt, how heard, how human. Okay, she said, and recited her number. Ethan typed it into his phone, then sent her a text so she'd have his. There. Now you can't escape me completely. They paid their bills, Ethan insisting on covering Mara's hot chocolates despite her protests, and walked out into the February night together. The cold hit them immediately, but the sky was clear, stars visible even through the city lights. Where are you parked? Ethan asked. Just around the corner, blue Honda. I'll walk you. You don't have to. I want to. Ethan fell into step beside her, his presence solid and reassuring in the darkness. My mom raised me right. They walked in comfortable silence until they reached Mara's car. She unlocked it, then turned to face him. Thank you, Ethan. Really. Tonight could have been so much worse if you hadn't been there. Tonight shouldn't have happened at all. Ethan's expression was serious. You deserved better from the start. But I'm selfishly glad I got to meet you, even if it came out of a terrible situation. Me too. Mara surprised herself by meaning it. Drive safe, okay? And text me when you get home so I know you made it. I will. Mara got into her car, and as she pulled away from the curb, she glanced in her rearview mirror. Ethan was still standing on the sidewalk, one hand raised in a wave, watching to make sure she got away safely. For the first time in as long as she could remember, Mara drove home feeling like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she'd thought. And when she got to her apartment 20 minutes later, she sent Ethan a text. Home safe. Thank you again for everything. His response came almost immediately. Glad you're safe. Sleep well, Mara. You made my Wednesday infinitely better. Mara climbed into bed that night with her phone clutched in her hand, rereading those words over and over. And when she finally fell asleep, it wasn't Damon's cruel face she saw behind her closed eyes. It was Ethan's steady brown gaze looking at her like she mattered. Looking at her like she was enough. The morning after felt different. Mara woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom curtains, and for the first few seconds before full consciousness arrived, she felt something she couldn't quite name. Not happiness exactly, but maybe its quieter cousin, contentment. The memory of last night settled over her like a warm blanket, and she reached for her phone before even getting out of bed. Ethan's goodnight text was still there, proof that it had all been real. She scrolled up through their brief exchange, studying each word like an archaeologist examining ancient artifacts for hidden meaning. You made my Wednesday infinitely better. Did he really mean that? Or was it just politeness? The kind thing to say to someone who'd been publicly humiliated? Her phone buzzed with a new message, and her heart did an embarrassing little jump when she saw his name. Morning. Hope you slept well. Luna just informed me that Thursday is backwards day at school, and I have to help her figure out how to wear her shirt inside out without it looking terrible. Parenting is glamorous. How are you doing? Mara read the text 3 times, a smile creeping across her face. He was thinking about her. He'd reached out first. This wasn't just polite obligation, this was someone who wanted to maintain contact. She typed and deleted 4 different responses before settling on, slept better than expected. Backwards day sounds like a fashion challenge. I'm okay. Still processing everything, but okay. His response came quickly. Processing is good. Processing means you're not just burying it. And if you need to talk through any of it, I'm around. Also, Luna wants me to ask if you know whether socks go on the outside or inside of shoes for backwards day. This is apparently a crucial distinction. Definitely outside, Mara typed back, laughing out loud in her empty apartment. Commit to the bit. You're a bad influence. I like it. Mara carried her phone into the kitchen, still smiling as she made coffee. Jasmine had left 7 voicemails and 14 texts, ranging from excited anticipation to confused concern to outright panic when Mara hadn't responded. The last message, sent at 11 p.m., read, Mara Louise Collins, if you're not dead, please text me back. I'm losing my mind. Mara took a deep breath and called her. Jasmine answered before the first ring finished. Oh, thank God. Are you okay? What happened? I've been imagining every terrible scenario. Did he show up? Did you hit it off? Why didn't you text me? Jazz, breathe. Mara settled onto her couch with her coffee. I'm fine. He showed up. And? Come on. Don't make me pull teeth here. How was he? Did you like him? Seen him again? Mara paused, trying to figure out how to explain what had happened without making Jasmine feel guilty. He took one look at me and told me I was too fat for him, in front of the entire cafe. Then he left. The silence on the other end was deafening. He what? Jasmine's voice came out strangled. Mara, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I had no idea he was like that. His profile said he valued authenticity and inner beauty. And when we talked about you, he seemed genuinely interested, and I thought, it's okay. Mara surprised herself by meaning it. You didn't know. It's not okay. Nothing about that is okay. Jasmine sounded close to tears. Where are you? I'm coming over. I'm bringing ice cream and wine, and we're going to trash talk him until you feel better. Actually, I'm okay. Really. Mara took a sip of her coffee. Something else happened. Someone else was there, and he stood up for me. And we ended up talking for hours. And honestly, it turned into a pretty good night. Wait, what? Who? Tell me everything. So Mara did. She told Jasmine about Ethan's intervention, about the dinner they'd shared, about the conversation that had ranged from grief to books to single parenting. She told her about the way he'd looked at her, not through her, not around her, but directly at her, like she was someone worth seeing. So is this a thing? Jasmine asked when Mara finished. Are you going to see him again? I don't know. Maybe. He asked for my number, but he was really clear that it wasn't about dating. He's got a daughter, and he's still grieving his wife, and I'm still... Mara trailed off. I'm still me. Still carrying all the same baggage I had before last night. Mara, Jasmine's voice softened. You're allowed to be interested in someone. You're allowed to hope. Hope is dangerous. Hope is necessary. Jasmine paused. Look, I know I screwed up with Damon. I should have vetted him better, should have been more careful. But this guy, Ethan, he sounds different. He sounds like someone who actually sees you. Maybe, Mara traced the rim of her coffee mug, or maybe he was just being kind to someone having the worst night of her life. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. There's only one way to find out. Keep talking to him, see where it goes. And if he turns out to be another Damon, I will personally key his car. Mara laughed despite herself. That's illegal. So is being an asshole to my best friend, but apparently people do it anyway. They talked for another 20 minutes before Jasmine had to go to work, but Mara felt lighter after the conversation. Jasmine's guilt was genuine, her support unwavering, and even though the blind date had been a disaster, their friendship had survived it. The days that followed established a pattern. Ethan would text in the morning, always something light, often something about Luna's latest adventure or crisis. Mara would respond, and their conversations would continue throughout the day in comfortable bursts. Nothing heavy, nothing demanding, just the pleasant exchange of two people getting to know each other. Luna lost a tooth at school today and is convinced the tooth fairy pays more if you write a business proposal explaining why you deserve premium compensation, Ethan texted on Friday afternoon. Is she wrong? Mara replied. That shows initiative. You're encouraging this. Her proposal includes a PowerPoint presentation she made me help her with last night. I've created a monster. The tooth fairy should be impressed by the hustle. The tooth fairy is seriously considering paying her to stop making presentations. Mara found herself checking her phone more often, smiling at random moments throughout her workday when a new message arrived. Her coworker Marcus noticed. Who is he? Marcus asked during their lunch break, grinning at her over his sandwich. You've been glowing at your phone for 3 days straight. I'm not glowing. But Mara could feel herself blushing. You're totally glowing. Come on, spill. New boyfriend? Not a boyfriend, just a friend. A new friend. Even saying it out loud felt strange, precious, like something that might disappear if she examined it too closely. Marcus raised an eyebrow. A friend who makes you smile like that? Interesting. It's not like that. He's not interested in me that way. He's just being nice. Mara. Marcus set down his sandwich and looked at her seriously. You've worked here for 5 years, and I've never seen you light up like this over anyone. Maybe it's not like that for him yet, but it's definitely like something for you. And that's okay. That's good. You deserve to feel this way about someone. I barely know him. So get to know him better. What's the worst that could happen? Mara could think of 1,000 worst-case scenarios, but she didn't voice them. Instead, she changed the subject, and Marcus let her, but his words stayed with her for the rest of the day. That evening, Mara was cataloging a new shipment of historical fiction when her phone rang. Not a text, an actual call. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, and her stomach did a nervous flip. Hello? Hey, Mara. Is this a bad time? Ethan's voice sounded slightly strained. No, I'm just at work. What's up? Is everything okay? Sort of, maybe. I'm having a minor crisis, and you were the first person I thought to call, which is either really presumptuous of me or a sign that I need to make more friends. He let out a frustrated breath. Luna's school is having a favorite book character day next Friday, and she wants to be Matilda, which is great, except I have no idea how to do kids' hair. And apparently Matilda has very specific hair that involves ribbons and braids, and I just tried to follow a YouTube tutorial and made my daughter look like she got into a fight with a hairdryer. Despite the stress in his voice, Mara found herself smiling. Did you call me because I work at a library and therefore must know how to do Matilda's hair? I called you because you seem like someone who might have skills I lack, and also because Luna heard me mention you and now wants to meet the lady who Dad had dinner with. And I realize that's a lot of pressure, but if you're free this weekend, maybe you could come over and help me figure out this hair situation. I'll pay you in pizza and the undying gratitude of a desperate single father. Mara's heart was racing. This was different from texting. This was an invitation into his actual life, into his home, to meet his daughter. I don't know if I'm qualified for this. My hair is naturally wavy. I usually just let it do its thing. You have more qualifications than me. I'm currently holding scissors, and I'm pretty sure I'm one wrong move away from giving my daughter an accidental mohawk. He paused. But seriously, no pressure. If this is too much too fast, I completely understand. We've only known each other a week. Has it only been a week? The words slipped out before Mara could stop them. Feels longer, doesn't it? Ethan's voice softened. In a good way. Like we've been friends for longer than we actually have. Mara closed her eyes, making a decision that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. What time on Saturday? Really? You'll come? I'll come. But I'm bringing my laptop and several YouTube tutorials because I'm not confident in my Matilda hair abilities either. You're a lifesaver. How does 2 o'clock work? That gives Luna time to finish her math homework, which she's currently avoiding by trying to teach herself how to braid using shoelaces. 2 works. Text me your address. After they hung up, Mara stood in the middle of the library's back room, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She'd just agreed to meet Luna, to go to Ethan's house, to step into their life in a real, tangible way. You okay? Marcus poked his head around the corner. You look like you've seen a ghost. I think I just agreed to something terrifying. The good kind of terrifying or the bad kind? Mara thought about it. I have no idea. Saturday arrived faster than Mara wanted. She changed outfits 4 times before settling on jeans and a soft green sweater. Casual, but not sloppy. Nice, but not like she was trying too hard. She pulled her hair back in a simple braid, applied minimal makeup, and stared at herself in the mirror. You can do this, she told her reflection. It's just a little girl who needs help with her hair. It's not a marriage proposal. It's not even a date. It's just helping out a friend. But as she drove to Ethan's address, a modest 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood with a slightly overgrown lawn and a bike lying on its side in the driveway, Mara couldn't shake the feeling that she was crossing some invisible threshold. This mattered in a way that made her hands tremble slightly as she rang the doorbell. Ethan answered almost immediately, and Mara's breath caught. He looked different than he had at the cafe, more relaxed in worn jeans and a gray Henley, his hair slightly mussed like he'd been running his hands through it. But it was his smile that did her in, warm and genuine and relieved. You came. I was half convinced you'd bail. I considered it about 12 times on the drive over, Mara admitted. Honest, I like it. Ethan stepped back to let her in. Fair warning, the house is a disaster. Luna's been working on an art project all morning, and there's glitter in places glitter should never be. Mara stepped into a living room that was indeed chaotic, but in a way that felt lived in and loved. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator visible through the kitchen doorway. Books were stacked on every available surface. A half-finished puzzle occupied the coffee table, and yes, there was glitter on the couch. Dad, is she here? A small voice called from upstairs. Yeah, Luna Bear, come on down. Mara heard footsteps thundering down the stairs, and then Luna appeared. She was small for 7, with dark hair like her father's, but her mother's delicate features based on the photos Mara could see on the mantel. She wore purple leggings, a t-shirt with a dinosaur on it, and rainbow socks. Her hair was currently in what could generously be called a lopsided ponytail. Luna stopped at the bottom of the stairs and studied Mara with the intense, unfiltered scrutiny that only children can manage. You're taller than I thought you'd be. Luna, that's not... Ethan started, but Mara laughed. I get that a lot. You're exactly as tall as I thought you'd be. Luna considered this, then smiled. Dad says you work with books. Do you know all the books? Not all of them. There are way too many books in the world for anyone to know them all. But I know a lot of them. Have you read Matilda? 3 times. It's my favorite. Matilda is so smart and she has magic powers and she stands up to mean people. Luna walked closer, still studying Mara. Dad also said you're really nice and that someone was mean to you and that's how you met. Luna, Ethan's voice held a warning note. We talked about appropriate questions. It's okay. Mara knelt down so she was at Luna's eye level. Someone was mean to me, yes. And your dad stood up for me, which was really brave. He's a good person. I know. Luna said it with complete confidence. He's the best dad, even though he can't do hair at all. I heard you need to look like Matilda for school. That's a pretty cool choice. Do you think you can help? Dad tried, but it looked really weird. No offense, Dad. None taken, Ethan said dryly. My masculinity can handle being bad at hair. Mara opened her laptop on the dining room table, and Luna climbed into the chair beside her, peering at the screen as Mara pulled up tutorials. They spent the next hour watching videos, gathering supplies, ribbons, bobby pins, a spray bottle of water, and practicing on Luna's hair while Ethan watched from the doorway with an expression Mara couldn't quite read. Luna was a chatterbox once she got comfortable, bouncing between topics with the effortless energy of childhood. She told Mara about her teacher, Mrs. Henderson, who let students bring their pets for show and tell, about her best friend Zoe, who was moving to California, and how sad she was about it, about the chapter book she was writing about a girl who could talk to clouds. Clouds have a lot to say if you listen, Luna explained seriously. People just don't pay attention. What do they say? Mara asked, carefully sectioning Luna's hair. Mostly they complain about airplanes flying through them, and they gossip about the mountains. Luna giggled. In my story, the main character, her name is Arya, she helps the clouds solve a mystery. That sounds like an amazing story. Will you let me read it when you're done? Luna's eyes went wide. Really? You'd want to read my story? Absolutely. I read stories for a living, remember? And yours sounds better than a lot of books I've cataloged. Hear that, Dad? Luna twisted to look at Ethan. Mara wants to read my story. I heard. That's pretty cool, Luna Bear. Ethan's eyes met Mara's over his daughter's head, and the gratitude in them made her chest tight. By the time they finished, Luna's hair was arranged in 2 neat braids with red ribbons woven through them. Not perfect, but recognizably Matilda-inspired. Luna ran to look in the bathroom mirror and came back squealing with delight. I look just like her. Mara, you're magic. Not magic, just YouTube educated. But Mara couldn't help but smile at Luna's excitement. Can you stay for pizza? Luna asked. Dad always orders pizza on Saturday nights and we watch a movie. You could pick the movie since you're the guest. Mara glanced at Ethan, uncertain. I don't want to intrude on your tradition. You're not intruding. Ethan's voice was warm. I'd love for you to stay. If you want to, no pressure. Please? Luna grabbed Mara's hand. We can watch Matilda, and you can sit in the comfortable chair, the one with the good cushions. How could anyone say no to that? Okay, but only if I can help pay for the pizza. Absolutely not, Ethan said firmly. You just saved me from favorite book character day disaster. Pizza is the least I can offer. They ordered from a local place that Luna promised had the best pepperoni in the universe, and while they waited for delivery, Luna gave Mara a complete tour of the house. She showed Mara her room, purple walls covered in her own artwork, shelves full of books and stuffed animals, a desk where she wrote her stories. She pointed out the photos on the walls, explaining each one. That's my mom, Luna said, stopping in front of a picture in the hallway. It showed a beautiful blonde woman laughing at the camera, her arms around a much younger Luna. She died when I was 4. I don't remember a lot about her, but Dad tells me stories. She was very beautiful, Mara said softly. Dad says I have her smile and her stubbornness. Luna touched the frame gently. Do you think people can watch us from heaven? The question hit Mara square in the chest. I think if love is strong enough, it finds a way to stay with us. So maybe not watching, but definitely still here in a way. In the stories your dad tells, in the smile you inherited, in all the ways she's still part of who you are. Luna thought about this, then nodded. I like that better than watching. Watching sounds lonely. Being part of someone sounds nice. The pizza arrived, and they ate at the dining room table, Luna between Mara and Ethan, telling knock-knock jokes that made no sense but were hilarious anyway because of her delivery. After dinner, they settled in the living room for Matilda. Luna claimed the couch, insisting Mara take the comfortable chair, while Ethan sat on the floor with his back against the couch. Halfway through the movie, Mara glanced over and saw that Luna had fallen asleep, her head tilted against a cushion, her braids slightly askew but still intact. Ethan noticed at the same time and carefully maneuvered himself up, scooping his daughter into his arms. Be right back, he whispered to Mara. While he was gone, Mara looked around the living room again, seeing details she'd missed before. The worn spot on the couch armrest where someone's elbow always rested. The growth chart marked on the doorframe showing Luna's height each year. The little clay handprint in a frame on the bookshelf dated when Luna was 3. This was a home built from love and loss, from daily routines and precious memories. And somehow, impossibly, Mara was sitting in the middle of it. Ethan returned, closing Luna's bedroom door quietly behind him. She's out. That girl can fall asleep anywhere, anytime. It's both a blessing and slightly concerning. She's wonderful, Mara said. Really, Ethan, she's incredible. She is. Ethan settled back onto the floor, but this time he turned to face Mara instead of the TV. Thank you for today. For coming, for helping with her hair, for being so good with her. She doesn't warm up to people easily anymore. Not since Claire died. She's been hurt enough times by people who drift in and out of our lives, but with you, she just opened up. She's easy to talk to, and she's clearly loved. You're doing an amazing job with her. Most days I feel like I'm barely hanging on. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. Single parenting is terrifying. Every decision feels huge. Every mistake feels catastrophic. I lie awake at night wondering if I'm screwing her up, if she'd be better off with someone who actually knows what they're doing. She's happy. She's creative and confident and kind. Those things don't happen by accident. You're doing more than hanging on, Ethan. You're giving her everything she needs. He looked at her for a long moment, and Mara saw something shift in his expression, something vulnerable and honest, and a little bit scared. Can I tell you something? Of course. When I asked you to come today, it wasn't just about the hair. I mean, yes, I genuinely needed help with that. But I also wanted Luna to meet you because... He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Because you've been on my mind constantly, since that night at the cafe. And I wanted to see if what I felt that night was real or just some weird combination of adrenaline and knight in shining armor complex. Mara's heart was hammering. And? And it's real. You're real. The way I feel when we talk, the way you make me laugh, the way you were with Luna today. It's all real. Ethan held her gaze. Which terrifies me, honestly, because I'm not ready to date. I'm not ready to open my heart up like that. And Luna needs stability, not another person who might disappear from her life. But I also can't stop thinking about you, and I don't know what to do with that. The confession hung in the air between them, honest and raw. Mara felt like she was standing at the edge of something immense, and one step forward would either be the best or worst decision of her life. I'm not ready either, she said finally. I'm still carrying everything Damon said, every cruel word from every person who ever made me feel like I wasn't enough, and the idea of putting myself out there again, of being vulnerable with someone who could hurt me. It's paralyzing. So where does that leave us? Mara took a breath. Maybe it leaves us here. Being honest, being friends, taking it one day at a time without any pressure or expectations. You're not ready to date, and I'm not ready to be hurt again. But maybe we can just keep doing this. Keep talking, keep spending time together, see what happens naturally instead of forcing it into something it's not ready to be. Ethan smiled, and relief flooded his features. Friends who enjoy each other's company and might potentially become something more when we're both ready? Exactly. No timeline, no pressure, just two people who like spending time together. I can do that. Ethan extended his hand across the space between them. Friends? Mara took his hand, and the warmth of his grip sent electricity up her arm. Friends. But as she drove home that night, replaying every moment of the day in her mind, Mara knew she was lying to herself. She was already falling, already imagining futures she had no right to imagine, already hoping for things she'd promised herself she wouldn't hope for. And for the first time in years, the fear of getting hurt felt less important than the possibility of being loved. The weeks that followed established a rhythm that felt both natural and impossible. Mara found herself woven into the fabric of Ethan and Luna's life in ways that surprised her. Not dramatically, not with grand gestures, but in the quiet accumulation of ordinary moments that somehow meant everything. Tuesday nights became their unofficial tradition. Ethan would text around lunchtime asking what she wanted for dinner, and Mara would show up at 6:30 with a salad or dessert, something to contribute that felt like participation rather than charity. Luna would greet her at the door with updates about school, about the ongoing saga of her cloud story, about whatever injustice or triumph had defined her day. And Ethan would smile from the kitchen, that particular smile that made Mara's stomach flip every single time. They were careful with each other, dancing around the attraction they'd both acknowledged, but neither was ready to act on. Ethan never touched her beyond friendly hugs goodbye. Never let his gaze linger too long, never said anything that crossed the line from friendship into something more. And Mara tried to ignore the way her heart raced when he laughed at her jokes, the way she caught herself checking her phone constantly for his messages, the way she was already thinking about him when she woke up each morning. "You're in deep," Jasmine observed one afternoon as they met for coffee. Mara had been in the middle of telling a story about Luna's latest school project when she'd realized she'd been talking about Ethan's family for 15 straight minutes. "We're just friends," Mara insisted, but the words felt hollow even to her own ears. "Mara, you light up when you talk about them. You rearranged your entire Tuesday schedule so you'd never have to miss dinner. You bought a book about helping kids process grief so you could better understand what Luna's going through. That's not just friends. That's falling in love with a whole family." "He's not ready. I'm not ready." "We agreed." "You agreed to take things slow, which is smart. But don't use not ready as an excuse to never be vulnerable." Jasmine reached across the table and squeezed Mara's hand. "I know Damon hurt you. I know you're scared. But Ethan isn't Damon, and you deserve to let yourself feel what you're feeling without constantly second-guessing it." Mara stared into her latte, watching the foam dissolve. "What if I'm just convenient? What if he's lonely, and I'm there, and it's not really about me at all?" "Has he given you any reason to think that?" "No, but that's what scares me. Everything feels perfect, and perfect things don't happen to people like me." "People like you?" Jasmine's voice sharpened. "Mara Collins, if you're about to say something self-deprecating about your weight, I swear I will throw this coffee at you." "I wasn't," but Mara stopped because she had been about to say exactly that. The words were always there, lurking beneath every good thing, ready to poison it with doubt. "I just mean that I'm used to being disappointed. I'm used to being the second choice, the backup plan, the person men settle for when they can't get who they really want. Ethan chose you. He keeps choosing you. Every Tuesday, every text, every time he asks your opinion or shares something about his life. He's choosing you. When do you start believing you're worth choosing?" The question haunted Mara for days. When did she start believing? And more importantly, could she? The following Tuesday, Mara arrived to find Luna in tears at the kitchen table, Ethan hovering beside her with the helpless expression of a parent watching their child hurt and being unable to fix it. "What happened?" Mara set down the apple pie she'd brought and immediately went to Luna's side. "Zoe's moving on Saturday," Luna sobbed. "We were supposed to have 2 more months, but her dad's job is starting early and she's leaving this weekend, and I didn't even get to plan a proper goodbye." Mara looked at Ethan, who mouthed best friend over Luna's head. "Right. The friend moving to California that Luna had mentioned weeks ago." "That's really hard," Mara said, sitting down next to Luna. "Having to say goodbye sooner than you expected. It's not fair." Luna wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "First Mom died, then Grandpa moved to Florida, then Mrs. Henderson retired, and now Zoe's leaving. Everyone leaves." The words hit Mara like a physical blow. She saw Ethan's face crumple slightly before he composed himself, and she understood suddenly why he'd been so cautious about letting people into Luna's life. This little girl had already lost so much, and every departure carved out a new hollow in her heart. "You're right. It's not fair," Mara agreed. "And I'm not going to tell you that it is, or that everything happens for a reason, because sometimes things are just sad and hard, and there's no good reason for them." Luna looked up at her, tears still streaming down her face. "That's what Dad says. He says it's okay to be sad without trying to make it something else." "Your dad's smart." Mara glanced at Ethan, who was watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. "But here's something I learned about goodbyes. The fact that they hurt so much means the friendship was real and important. If Zoe didn't matter to you, her leaving wouldn't hurt. So in a weird way, the pain proves how much you loved each other." "That's a terrible silver lining," Luna said, but there was the tiniest hint of a smile beneath the tears. "I know, right? It's the worst. But it's true. And the other thing about goodbyes is that they don't have to be forever. People can stay in your heart even when they're far away. You can write letters, video chat, maybe visit someday. Distance makes friendship harder, but it doesn't make it impossible." Luna was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then she said, "Will you help me make something for Zoe? Like a goodbye present that she can take to California so she remembers me?" "Absolutely. What were you thinking?" They spent the next hour at the kitchen table while Ethan made dinner, creating a memory book filled with photos Luna had printed from her tablet, drawings she made of their favorite moments together, and letters written in Luna's careful 7-year-old handwriting. Mara helped with the cutting and gluing, offered suggestions for captions, and watched as the project transformed Luna's grief into something tangible and loving. "This is perfect," Luna said, admiring the finished book. "Zoe's going to love it." She looked up at Mara with eyes that were still red but no longer crying. "Thank you for helping. You always know what to say." "I definitely don't always know what to say, but I try. Dad says trying is what counts." Luna carefully set the book aside and threw her arms around Mara's waist in an impulsive hug. "I'm really glad you're here." Mara hugged her back, feeling her throat tighten with emotion. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." Over Luna's head, she met Ethan's eyes across the kitchen. He was standing at the stove, a wooden spoon forgotten in his hand, looking at them with an expression so tender it made Mara's chest ache. In that moment, she realized Jasmine was right. She wasn't just falling for Ethan. She was falling for this whole life, this family, this little girl who'd already been hurt so much and was still brave enough to keep loving people. The realization terrified her. After dinner, Luna wanted to watch a movie, but exhaustion from crying caught up with her and she fell asleep 20 minutes in, curled against Mara's side on the couch. Ethan carefully lifted her and carried her to bed, and Mara waited, her heart pounding, knowing they needed to talk, but not sure what she was going to say. When Ethan returned, he didn't sit back down. Instead, he stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain in a way she'd never seen from him before. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. Mara's stomach dropped. This was it. He was going to say she'd gotten too close, that Luna was getting too attached, that they needed to step back. "Okay. What you did tonight, with Luna, helping her process Zoe leaving, that was incredible. You didn't try to fix it or minimize it. You just sat with her in the hurt and helped her find a way through it." Ethan moved into the room, sitting in the chair across from Mara instead of beside her, maintaining distance. "But it also scared the hell out of me." "Why?" "Because Luna's already attached to you. She talks about you constantly. She asks when you're coming over, tells you things she doesn't tell anyone else, looks to you for comfort. And if you decide tomorrow that this is too much, that you're done with us, it will devastate her. She'll lose another person she loves, and I don't know if she can handle that." Mara felt like she'd been slapped. "Is that what you think? That I'm just going to walk away?" "I don't know what to think. We said we were taking things slow, being friends, but it doesn't feel like friendship anymore, Mara. At least not for me. And I'm terrified because I can't tell if you feel the same way or if you're just being kind to a lonely single dad and his kid." "Just being kind?" Mara's voice rose slightly. "Ethan, I think about you constantly. I rearrange my schedule around Tuesday dinners. I lie awake at night replaying conversations. I care about Luna like she's..." She stopped, afraid to finish the sentence. "Like she's what?" "Like she's already part of my heart." The admission came out barely above a whisper. "And that terrifies me because I have no right to feel that way about someone else's child. But I do. I care about her so much it scares me. And I care about you, and this whole situation is terrifying because what if I'm not enough? What if eventually you realize you could do better? Find someone who..." "Stop!" Ethan was on his feet, closing the distance between them in 2 strides. He knelt in front of where Mara sat on the couch, his hands hovering near hers but not touching. "Mara, look at me." She did, and saw intensity in his eyes that took her breath away. "You are enough. You have always been enough. And I'm sorry if I ever made you feel like you weren't. I'm not scared because I think you're inadequate. I'm scared because I'm falling for you, and I don't know how to protect Luna, how to protect us, if this doesn't work out." "You're falling for me?" Mara's voice broke on the words. "Have been since the moment you sat down at my table instead of running out of that cafe. Maybe even before that, when I watched you refuse to let that asshole make you cry in public." Ethan finally took her hands, and the touch sent electricity through her entire body. "But I come with complications. I've got a kid who needs stability, a dead wife whose memory is still everywhere in this house, a life that's messy and chaotic and never going to be simple. And you deserve simple. You deserve easy. You deserve someone who can give you their whole heart without all this baggage." "I don't want simple." Mara tightened her grip on his hands. I want real. And this, you, Luna, this whole messy, complicated situation, this is the most real thing I've felt in years, maybe ever. They stared at each other, and Mara could see the war happening behind Ethan's eyes, fear battling hope, caution fighting desire. I'm going to kiss you now, he said finally, if that's okay. That's very okay. He leaned forward, and his lips met hers with a gentleness that made her want to cry. It wasn't a passionate kiss, wasn't desperate or demanding. It was tender and careful, the kiss of someone who understood the weight of what they were starting. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. I'm still scared, he whispered. Me too. But I don't want to be so scared that I lose this, lose you. Then don't. Mara pulled back enough to see his face clearly. Let's stop being so terrified of what might go wrong that we miss what's already right. Ethan smiled, and it transformed his entire face. When did you get so wise? Probably around the time I spent an hour at the library Googling how to braid hair like Matilda, so I wouldn't disappoint a 7-year-old I'd just met. He laughed, and the sound filled something in Mara she hadn't realized was empty. They stayed like that for a long moment, him kneeling in front of the couch, her hands still in his, both of them grinning like idiots. So what now? Mara asked finally. Are we dating? Are we together? What do we tell Luna? We tell Luna the truth, that Mara is someone very special to Dad, and that we're going to spend more time together and see where it goes. She's smart. She probably already knows I have feelings for you. Ethan stood up, pulling Mara to her feet. And yes, I'd like to be dating you. Officially. Is that okay? That's more than okay. Fair warning, dating me is not glamorous. It involves a lot of chicken nuggets, Disney movies, and being interrupted by a 7-year-old who has no concept of privacy. I think I can handle that. And I have baggage, a lot of it. Grief, guilt, protective father instincts that might drive you crazy. Ethan, Mara cupped his face in her hands. I have baggage too. Years of insecurity, self-doubt, body image issues that don't just disappear because one good guy thinks I'm worth dating. We're both walking into this carrying stuff, but maybe we can help each other carry it. He kissed her again, longer this time, and when they broke apart, he was smiling. Tuesday dinners aren't going to be enough anymore. Probably not. So maybe Friday nights too, and Saturday afternoons, and possibly random weekday lunches when I can escape the office? That sounds perfect. They stood in the middle of his living room, and Mara looked around at the space that had become so familiar. The photos on the mantle, Luna's artwork on the walls, the worn furniture that told stories of a life lived. This could be her life too, not replacing Claire, never that, but adding to the story, becoming part of the ongoing narrative. I should probably go, Mara said reluctantly, though it was the last thing she wanted to do. It's getting late. I know. But I don't want you to leave. That's a good sign. Ethan walked her to the door, and they stood on the porch under the yellow light, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Text me when you get home. Always. And Mara, thank you. For tonight, for every Tuesday, for giving us a chance, for being brave enough to stay when most people would have run. Thank you for seeing me. Really seeing me, not just looking at me. Mara kissed him once more, quick and sweet. Good night, Ethan. Good night. The drive home felt different. Mara played her favorite playlist loud, sang along off-key, and didn't care who saw her grinning like a fool at stoplights. When she got to her apartment, she texted Ethan. Home safe, still smiling, can't stop. His response came immediately. Good, don't stop. I'm smiling too. Luna just woke up asking if you're my girlfriend. I told her maybe. She said, Dad, that's not a maybe, that's definitely a yes. Kid's too smart for her own good. She gets that from you. She gets everything good from her mom. But I'll take the compliment. Good night, Ethan. Sweet dreams. They will be. They'll be about you. Mara fell asleep that night holding her phone, reading and rereading their conversation, letting herself feel hopeful for the first time in longer than she could remember. The next few weeks were a blur of adjustment and joy. Ethan was right. Dating him was chaotic. Their first official date got interrupted when Luna's school called about a stomach bug. Their second date happened at a children's arcade because Luna had won tickets for good behavior and wanted Mara to come. Their third date was actually perfect. Dinner at a nice restaurant, adult conversation, Ethan's hand warm in hers across the table, until Ethan's mother called with an emergency that turned out to be her inability to find the remote control. But through it all, Mara found herself laughing more than she had in years. The chaos wasn't frustrating, it was endearing. Being part of someone's real life, with all its complications and interruptions, felt infinitely better than the fantasy of perfect dates she'd imagined. Luna adapted to the new dynamic with the resilience of children. She started calling Mara's Tuesday visits family dinner, a phrase that made Mara's heart swell every time she heard it. She'd grab both Mara and Ethan's hands when they walked places, swinging between them. She started asking Mara's opinion on things, what shoes to wear, whether her story idea made sense, if her math homework was correct. "She's treating you like a parent," Jasmine observed when Mara told her about it. "How does that feel?" "Terrifying, amazing, like way too much responsibility for someone who's only been dating her father for a month." Mara paused, "But also kind of natural. Like I don't feel like I'm forcing it. She just includes me now." "And Ethan, how's he handling it?" "He's wonderful. Attentive without being smothering. He checks in constantly about how I'm feeling, if the pace is okay, if I need space. Sometimes I have to remind him that I'm not going to break." "But you're happy?" Mara considered the question. Was she happy? Yes. Scared, but happy, like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, but also just trying to enjoy what's happening right now. The other shoe dropped on a Saturday in early April. Mara was at Ethan's house, helping Luna work on her cloud story while Ethan grilled burgers in the backyard. It was a perfect spring day, warm sunshine streaming through the windows, birds singing outside. Luna was reading her latest chapter aloud when someone knocked on the front door. "I'll get it," Mara called, expecting a delivery or maybe a neighbor. She opened the door to find a woman standing there, mid-30s, blonde, beautiful in that effortless way some people managed. She wore yoga pants and an expensive-looking jacket, and she was staring at Mara with obvious confusion. "Can I help you?" Mara asked. "I'm looking for Ethan. Is he home?" The woman's voice was cool, assessing. "He's in the backyard. Can I tell him who's—" "Rachel!" Luna appeared behind Mara, her face lighting up. "Dad, Rachel's here!" Ethan came in from the back door, and Mara saw his expression shift from confused to shocked, to something that might have been uncomfortable. "Rachel, what are you doing here?" "Surprise visit. I was in town and thought I'd stop by." Rachel's eyes moved between Ethan and Mara, her smile tight. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" "Right. Rachel, this is Mara. Mara, this is Rachel, Claire's sister." The words hit Mara like cold water. Claire's sister. The dead wife's sister, standing in the doorway, looking at Mara like she was an intruder. "Nice to meet you," Mara managed, her voice sounding strained even to her own ears. "Mara's dad's girlfriend," Luna announced happily. "She comes over all the time. She's really good at braiding hair, and she works with books, and she's helping me with my story." Rachel's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "Girlfriend. How nice. I didn't realize you were seeing anyone, Ethan. You didn't mention it when we talked last week." "It's relatively new," Ethan said, and Mara heard tension in his voice. "We weren't keeping it secret. It just hasn't come up." "Well..." Rachel stepped inside without being invited, and Mara automatically moved back to give her space. "I'm glad you're moving on. Claire would want that." But her tone suggested she believed the opposite. The afternoon that had been so perfect moments ago now felt strained. Rachel stayed for lunch, asking Mara pointed questions about how she and Ethan met, how long they'd been together, whether she had children of her own. Each question felt like a test Mara was failing. "So you work at a library?" Rachel asked over burgers that suddenly tasted like cardboard in Mara's mouth. "That must be quiet." "It has its moments," Mara said carefully. "And you've never been married? No kids?" "No." "How interesting." Rachel's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Ethan, remember when Claire used to say she wanted Luna to have siblings? She had so many plans for the future." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Rachel." "What? I'm just reminiscing. I'm allowed to talk about my sister, aren't I?" But her eyes were on Mara, challenging. "Luna, oblivious to the undercurrents, kept trying to engage Rachel in conversation about school, about her story, about the upcoming dance recital, but Rachel's responses were distracted, her attention constantly returning to Mara with an assessment that made Mara feel like she was being measured against a ghost and found wanting. When Rachel finally left, promising Luna she'd come to the recital next month, Mara felt like she could breathe again, but the damage was done. She helped clean up lunch in silence, too aware of the photos of Claire everywhere, of the life Ethan had built with someone else, of the fact that she would always be the second wife, the replacement, the woman who wasn't Claire. "I should go," Mara said abruptly. "I have some work to catch up on." "Mara, wait." Ethan caught her arm. "Don't let Rachel get to you. She's protective of Claire's memory, but that doesn't mean, it's fine, I'm fine." But Mara wasn't fine. Something had cracked open inside her, all the old insecurities flooding back. "I just need to go." "Can we talk about this, please?" "There's nothing to talk about. Your sister-in-law is allowed to have opinions. And she's right. Claire was your wife. She's Luna's mother. Mara trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. "Just what? The woman I'm falling in love with? The person who makes my daughter smile? The first person since Claire died who makes me feel like maybe I can have a future?" Ethan's voice was intense. "You're not just anything, Mara." But Mara pulled away. "I need space. I need to think." She left before he could argue, before Luna could come out and ask why she was leaving early, before she started crying in front of them and proved every insecurity right. She drove home on autopilot, Rachel's words echoing in her head. Claire had so many plans. Claire wanted siblings for Luna. Claire, Claire, Claire. How could she compete with a dead woman? How could she ever be enough when she'd always be compared to someone who existed now only in perfected memory? Mara spent the rest of the weekend not answering Ethan's calls or texts. She told herself she needed time to think, but really she was spiraling, letting every old wound reopen, convincing herself that this had all been too good to be true. On Monday morning, Jasmine showed up at her apartment with coffee and determination. "Okay, talk," Jasmine said, pushing past Mara into the living room. "Ethan called me in a panic saying you won't talk to him. What happened?" So Mara told her everything about Rachel's visit, the pointed questions, the constant references to Claire, the feeling of being insufficient. "And now I keep thinking, what am I doing?" Mara finished. "I can never be what Claire was to them. I can never be Luna's real mother. I'm just the woman who happened to be convenient after the tragedy." "Is that what Ethan said?" "No, but you're deciding what he feels instead of listening to what he's telling you?" Jasmine set down her coffee with more force than necessary. "Mara, this is what you do. Something good happens, and instead of trusting it, you invent reasons why it can't be real." "I'm not inventing this. Rachel made it very clear. Rachel is a grieving sister who's protective of her dead sister's family. That doesn't mean she's right. And it definitely doesn't give you permission to sabotage your own happiness." Jasmine leaned forward. "Do you love him?" The question hung in the air. Mara felt tears burning behind her eyes. "Yes, I love him. And I love Luna, and that's what makes this so terrifying." "Then stop running. Stop letting your fear make decisions for you. Talk to Ethan. Actually listen to what he's telling you instead of assuming the worst." Jasmine softened her voice. "You deserve this, Mara. You deserve love and family and happiness, but you have to believe you deserve it. No one can convince you of that if you refuse to believe it yourself." After Jasmine left, Mara stared at her phone for a long time. Finally, she typed out a message. "Can we talk? I'm sorry for running. You're right. We need to actually discuss this." Ethan's response was immediate. "Yes. Can I come over?" "Luna's at school." "Yes." He arrived 30 minutes later, and the sight of him on her doorstep, worried eyes, rumpled hair like he'd been running his hands through it, nearly broke her. "Hi." "Hi." Mara stepped back to let him in. "I'm sorry for disappearing. That wasn't fair to you." "I'm sorry Rachel ambushed you like that. She called me yesterday and I told her off, probably more harshly than I should have." Ethan followed Mara to the couch, but didn't sit right away. "Can I say something before you tell me why you've been avoiding me?" Mara nodded, her throat tight. "I loved Claire. She was my wife, Luna's mother, and losing her nearly destroyed me. Her memory is part of this house, part of our lives, and that's never going to change." Ethan's voice was steady but emotional. "But that doesn't mean there's no room for you. Love isn't finite. Hearts don't have maximum capacity. And what I feel for you isn't less real because I love someone before you. It's different, but it's not less." "How do I compete with someone who only exists in perfect memory?" Mara's voice broke. "Every mistake I make will be compared to what Claire would have done. Every parenting decision, every dinner, every moment, I'll always be measured against someone I can never measure up to." "You're right." Ethan's honesty surprised her. "Some people probably will compare you to Claire. Rachel might never fully accept you, and Luna will probably at some point say something hurtful about wishing her real mom was here. Those things might happen, and they'll be painful when they do. Then how is this supposed to work?" Ethan finally sat down, close enough that she could feel his warmth but not touching her. "It works because I'm not comparing you to Claire. Because Luna loves you for who you are, not as a replacement for her mom. Because we're building something new, not trying to recreate something that's gone." He reached for her hand. "And it works because you have to trust me when I say you're enough. Not despite your differences from Claire, but because of who you actually are." "I don't know if I can do that. Trust it, I mean. Then let me prove it to you. Over and over, as many times as it takes." Ethan squeezed her hand. "But you have to stop running, Mara. You have to stay when it gets hard, because it will get hard. Relationships always do. But running doesn't protect you from pain. It just guarantees you'll be alone when the pain comes." Mara looked at their joined hands, at this man who'd seen her at her worst and stayed, who'd invited her into his complicated life and made space for her there. "I'm scared." "I know, me too, but let's be scared together." She finally met his eyes and saw nothing but honesty there. "Okay, together." They sat on her couch and talked for hours, about Claire, about Rachel, about insecurities and fears and the messy reality of blended families. And when Ethan finally left to pick up Luna from school, Mara felt lighter than she had in days. She wasn't naive enough to think one conversation fixed everything. The doubts would return. Rachel would probably remain disapproving. There would be more hard days, more comparisons, more moments when Mara felt insufficient. But maybe Ethan was right. Maybe love wasn't about being perfect or being first. Maybe it was about showing up, staying present, and trusting that she was enough exactly as she was. It was terrifying. But for the first time, Mara thought maybe she was brave enough to try. Spring turned to summer with the kind of gentle inevitability that made Mara believe for the first time in her life that good things could last. The weeks after her conversation with Ethan brought a cautious stability, a sense that maybe she could trust this happiness without waiting for it to shatter. Tuesday dinners expanded to include weekends. Mara found herself at the house so often that Ethan cleared a drawer for her in his dresser, a space for her things that felt both mundane and monumental. Luna started leaving notes for her, crayon drawings with "I love you, Mara" scrawled across the bottom, stories she'd written that featured characters who were definitely not based on you but also have brown wavy hair and work with books. "She's getting attached," Ethan said one evening in late June. They were sitting on his back porch while Luna played in the sprinkler, her laughter punctuating the warm evening air. "Like, really attached. Is that okay? Am I letting this move too fast?" Mara watched Luna spinning in circles, arms outstretched, completely unself-conscious in her joy. "I'm attached too. So if it's too fast, we're all in trouble together." "That's not as reassuring as you think it is." But Ethan was smiling, and when he reached for her hand, Mara took it without hesitation. Rachel remained a complication. She called frequently, and Mara could hear the edge in Ethan's voice when he spoke to her, patience wearing thin, frustration mounting. Rachel had opinions about everything, about how fast the relationship was moving, about whether it was appropriate for Mara to be around Luna so much, about the upcoming anniversary of Claire's death, and whether Ethan was honoring her memory properly. "She means well," Ethan said after a particularly tense phone call in early July. "She's just scared of losing the last connection she has to her sister. Luna's her only niece. I'm her only brother-in-law. If I move on, if we build a new life, she's terrified of being left behind." "I'm not trying to erase Claire," Mara said quietly. They were in the kitchen, supposedly making lunch, but the sandwich ingredients lay forgotten on the counter. I would never want to do that. I know. And deep down, Rachel knows it too. She's just not ready to accept it yet. Ethan pulled Mara into a hug, resting his chin on top of her head. Give her time. She'll come around. But time had a way of bringing challenges faster than solutions. The anniversary of Claire's death fell on a Tuesday in late July, and Ethan asked Mara not to come for their usual dinner. It's not that I don't want you there, he explained over the phone, his voice heavy with exhaustion. But Rachel's coming over, and Luna always has a hard time on this day, and I think it might be too much for everyone if you're there too. Does that make sense? It didn't, not really, but Mara said she understood. She spent that Tuesday evening alone in her apartment, trying not to imagine what was happening at the house, trying not to feel excluded from this fundamental part of their lives. Grief was private, she told herself, sacred. She had no right to be part of it. But when Ethan texted her at 10 p.m., I miss you, wish you were here, Mara felt the absence like a physical ache. The next morning, she arrived at the library to find Marcus waiting by her desk with 2 coffees and a concerned expression. Okay, you look like you didn't sleep. What's wrong? He handed her a latte and leaned against her desk. And don't say nothing because I've known you too long for that to work. Mara sank into her chair and told him about the anniversary, about feeling shut out, about the growing sense that no matter how much she loved Ethan and Luna, there would always be parts of their life she couldn't access. That's rough, Marcus said sympathetically, but also kind of understandable. I mean, grieving is weird and personal. Maybe Ethan just didn't want you to see him at his worst. Or maybe he didn't want Rachel to see me at all. Maybe he's keeping us separate because he knows Rachel will never approve and it's easier to just maintain 2 different lives, the one with me and the one with his late wife's family. Or maybe you're catastrophizing again. Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. Have you actually talked to Ethan about how you felt about being excluded? Or are you just stewing in it? Mara stared at her coffee. I told him I understood. But did you actually understand or just say what you thought he wanted to hear? The question haunted Mara for the rest of the day. When Ethan called that evening, she answered with her heart pounding. Hey, how are you? His voice sounded raw, like he'd been crying. Yesterday was rough. I'm sorry I couldn't talk much. It's okay. How's Luna? Struggling. She had nightmares last night, woke up crying for her mom. Ethan's voice cracked slightly. Rachel stayed over, which helped. She's better at handling the grief stuff than I am. She knew Claire longer, has more stories to share. Sometimes I feel like I'm failing Luna because I can't give her back what she lost. You're not failing her. You're giving her everything you have. Maybe. He didn't sound convinced. Can I see you this weekend? I need to see you. This week has been hell, and you're the only thing that makes it better. Mara felt something twist in her chest. She wanted to say yes, wanted to run to him, wanted to be whatever he needed, but Marcus's question echoed in her mind. Ethan, can I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you want me there yesterday? And please, be honest, not what you think I want to hear, the actual truth. The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Mara thought the call had dropped. Then Ethan said, because I didn't want you to see me like that. Broken and crying and completely non-functional. I didn't want you to have to take care of me and Luna and manage Rachel's emotions all at once. And honestly, I was scared that if you saw how hard this still is, how much I still grieve for her, you'd decide I'm not worth the effort. So you were protecting me? Or protecting yourself? Both. His honesty was jarring. I'm scared, Mara. Scared that I'm asking too much of you. Scared that you'll wake up one day and realize dating a widower with a traumatized kid and a hostile sister-in-law is more than you signed up for. Scared that I'm being selfish by dragging you into this mess when you could have someone easier, someone with less baggage. And yesterday, keeping me away? That was you deciding for me what I can handle? Yes. And that was wrong. I'm sorry. Mara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of unspoken words pressing against her chest. I need you to stop doing that. Stop deciding what's too much for me. Stop protecting me from the hard parts of your life. If we're building something real, I need to be part of all of it, not just the good days and the Tuesday dinners. I need to be there when it's ugly and painful too. What if it scares you away? Then it scares me away. But let that be my choice, not yours. Mara's voice strengthened. I love you, Ethan. I've been too scared to say it out loud, but I do. I love you, and I love Luna, and I want to be part of this family, but I can't do that if you keep shutting me out of the parts you think are too messy. The silence that followed was different this time, charged with emotion rather than uncertainty. You love me? Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. Even though it terrifies me, even though I'm not sure I deserve it, even though… Mara, stop. You do deserve it. You deserve everything. She could hear him moving, probably pacing like he did when he was processing strong emotions. I love you too. I've loved you for weeks, maybe months. And you're right. I've been an idiot trying to protect you from things you're strong enough to handle. It won't be easy changing that pattern, but I'll try. I promise, I'll try. That's all I'm asking. Just let me in, all the way in. They talked until after midnight, establishing new ground rules. Honesty over protection. Difficult conversations over comfortable silence. Trust that Mara was strong enough to handle the reality of loving a man who'd lost his wife, of helping raise a child who still grieved her mother. The following Saturday, Ethan invited Mara to the cemetery. It was the first time he'd asked her to come to something related to Claire, and Mara's hand shook as she met them in the parking lot. Luna was clutching a bouquet of wildflowers, her face solemn in a way that made her look older than 7. You came, Luna said, and relief flooded her features. I wanted you here. Is that okay? More than okay, sweetheart. Mara knelt down to Luna's level. Thank you for wanting me here. They walked together to Claire's grave, a simple headstone with her name, dates, and the inscription, Beloved Wife and Mother. Ethan placed his hand on the stone, and Mara saw his shoulders shake with silent tears. Luna set down the flowers carefully, then looked up at Mara with eyes too wise for her age. Do you think she knows about you? The question could have been a trap, could have been weighted with resentment or fear, but Luna's expression held only genuine curiosity. I don't know, Mara answered honestly, but if she does, I hope she knows that I'm trying to take care of you both. Not replace her. Never that. Just love you the best way I know how. Luna thought about this, then nodded. I think she'd be glad. Dad's been really sad for a long time. But since you came, he smiles more. And I like having someone who braids hair and knows about books and doesn't mind when I talk too much. You never talk too much. Mara felt tears burning behind her eyes. That's what Mom used to say. Luna said it matter-of-factly, without malice. You're different from her. She likes science, and you like stories. She could draw really good, and you're terrible at drawing. No offense. None taken. I am terrible at drawing. But you're both nice, and you both love Dad and me, so I think it's okay to love you even though I still miss her. Luna reached for Mara's hand. Is that okay? Mara had to swallow hard before she could speak. That's more than okay. You should always miss your mom. She was important and special, and missing her means you loved her, and you can love her and still have room in your heart for other people. Love doesn't run out. Luna squeezed her hand, then went to stand by Ethan, wrapping her arms around his waist. He looked back at Mara over Luna's head, and she saw gratitude and love and vulnerability all mixed together in his expression. They stood there for a long time, the three of them in front of Claire's grave, and instead of feeling like an intruder, Mara felt like she was being welcomed into something sacred. This was part of their story, part of who they were, and they were choosing to share it with her. On the drive back, Luna fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from emotion. Ethan reached across the console and took Mara's hand. Thank you, he said quietly, for what you said to Luna, for being here, for not running when things got hard. Thank you for letting me in, finally all the way in. There's more, more hard stuff ahead. Rachel's not going to magically become supportive. There'll be days when Luna resents you for not being Claire. Days when I'm drowning in grief and can't be the partner you deserve. Days when you'll question whether this is worth it. I know, Mara squeezed his hand, but there'll also be good days. Days when Luna calls me family. Days when you look at me like I hung the moon. Days when I realize that every hard thing was worth it because I get to be part of this. Part of you. When did you get so optimistic? Around the time I fell in love with a single dad and his incredible daughter. Mara smiled. You're a bad influence. The worst. The months that followed tested that optimism repeatedly. In August, Rachel came for Luna's birthday party and spent the entire time making pointed comments about the traditions Claire had established, about how things were different when Claire was alive, about whether it was appropriate for Mara to help Luna blow out the candles since she wasn't really family. Mara endured it with as much grace as she could muster, but that night she cried in Ethan's arms, all her old insecurities flooding back. "I'll never be enough for her," Mara sobbed. "No matter what I do, I'll always be the woman who replaced her sister." "You didn't replace anyone." Ethan held her tighter. "But you're right that Rachel may never fully accept you. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry that loving us means dealing with her judgment and her grief. But Mara, Luna loves you. I love you. And we get to choose our family, not Rachel." In September, Luna had a breakdown at school when a teacher innocently asked students to make Mother's Day cards for their moms. She called Ethan in tears, and when he couldn't leave work immediately, she asked for Mara. Mara left the library in the middle of cataloging a new shipment and drove to the school with her heart in her throat. She found Luna in the counselor's office, face blotchy from crying, clutching a half-made card that read, "To my Mo," before the writing dissolved into scribbles. "I don't have a mom to give it to," Luna said when she saw Mara. "Everyone else has a mom, but mine is dead and it's not fair." Mara sat beside her and pulled her close. "You're right. It's not fair. None of it is fair. The teacher said I could make it for someone else, like my aunt or my grandma, but that's not the same." "No, it's not the same." Mara chose her words carefully. "Your mom should be here. You should be able to make her a card and give her a hug and tell her you love her, and I'm so sorry that you can't." Luna cried harder, and Mara just held her, letting her feel everything without trying to fix it or make it better. Sometimes grief didn't need solutions. Sometimes it just needed witness. When Luna finally calmed down, she pulled back and looked at Mara with red-rimmed eyes. "Can I tell you something?" "Always." "Sometimes I pretend you're my mom. Not like replacing my real mom, but like my mom now. Is that bad?" Mara's throat closed up. "No, sweetheart, that's not bad at all." "Really? Because I feel guilty when I think it, like I'm betraying her or something." "Your mom would want you to have people who love you. She'd want you to have someone to help with homework and braid your hair and listen when you're sad. And loving me doesn't mean you love her any less." Mara cupped Luna's face gently. "You have room in your heart for both of us. Your mom, who you'll always miss and always love, and me who's here now. Both can be true at the same time." Luna thought about this, then carefully picked up the crumpled card. "Can I make this for you? Would that be okay?" "I would be honored." They finished the card together, Luna's careful printing saying, "To Mara, who is like my mom now," with a drawing of the three of them holding hands. Mara kept that card in her wallet, and on hard days when she questioned whether she belonged in this family, she'd take it out and remember Luna's tear-stained face saying, "You're like my mom now." In October, Ethan sat Mara down with a serious expression that immediately made her anxious. "We need to talk about the future," he said, and Mara's stomach dropped. "Okay." She braced herself for whatever was coming. A breakup. A need for space. Something that would confirm her worst fears. "I want you to move in with us." Mara stared at him. "What?" "Move in. With me and Luna. Be part of this family officially, not just on Tuesdays and weekends, but every day. Wake up in our bed, have breakfast with us, be there for the mundane stuff and the important stuff and everything in between." Ethan took her hands. "I know it's a big step. I know it's scary. But I love you and Luna loves you, and I don't want to keep pretending you're just visiting. This is your home. You belong here." "Ethan, Mara's mind was racing. "What about Rachel? What about Luna's routine? What if it's too fast?" "Rachel doesn't get a vote, and yes, Luna's routine will change, but she wants you here. We both do. And as for too fast, Mara, we've been together for 8 months. We love each other. We've already survived holidays and grief anniversaries and family drama. If we can handle all that, we can handle living together." "You really want this?" "I really want this. But only if you do. No pressure, no obligation, just Think about it. Imagine waking up here every morning. Imagine being part of every day, not just the highlight reel. If that sounds good to you, then let's do it. If it sounds terrifying, then we'll wait. Mara closed her eyes and let herself imagine it. Morning coffee with Ethan while Luna ate cereal, helping with homework at the kitchen table, bedtime stories and goodnight kisses, coming home from work to people who loved her, who chose her, who wanted her there. It was terrifying. It was everything she'd ever wanted. Okay, she whispered. Yes, let's do it. Ethan's smile could have lit up the entire house. Really? Really. I want to wake up here. I want to be part of every boring Tuesday and every hard Monday. I want all of it. He kissed her then, deep and tender and full of promise. When? Is this weekend too soon? This weekend is perfect. Moving in was chaotic and emotional and exactly right. Mara packed up her apartment, the space she'd lived in alone for 5 years, the fortress she'd built against disappointment and heartbreak. Jasmine helped, making sarcastic comments about how disgustingly happy Mara looked while packing boxes. Remember when you thought he was too good to be true? Jasmine said, wrapping Mara's dishes in newspaper. Remember when you were convinced he'd wake up and realize you weren't worth the effort? Please don't remind me of what an idiot I was. Not an idiot, just scared. But you chose to be brave, and look what happened. You got your family. Jasmine's eyes were suspiciously shiny. I'm really proud of you, you know, for not running, for staying when it got hard, for believing you deserved this. I couldn't have done it without you. All those times you showed up with coffee and tough love and refused to let me catastrophize myself out of happiness. Thank you. That's what best friends do. Jasmine hugged her hard. Now go. Go be part of your family, but still call me every week or I will hunt you down. Luna helped unpack Mara's boxes with the enthusiasm of a child who'd been promised a live-in best friend. She wanted Mara's books on her shelves, Mara's pictures on the walls, physical proof that this was permanent. Now you can't leave even if you want to, Luna said, carefully arranging Mara's favorite novels on the living room bookshelf. Because your stuff is here. I don't want to leave, Mara assured her. This is where I want to be. Promise? I promise. That first night, lying in bed next to Ethan in what was now their room, Mara felt something she'd been chasing her entire life settle into place. Peace, belonging, home. I love you, Ethan murmured in the darkness, his arm around her waist. Thank you for taking a chance on us. Thank you for seeing me, for choosing me, for letting me be part of this beautiful, complicated, perfect family. We're the lucky ones. Luna and me. We got you. Mara fell asleep that night listening to the sounds of her family. Ethan's steady breathing, Luna's occasional sleep talk from down the hall, the creak of the house settling around them. She'd started this year rejected and humiliated, convinced she'd never be chosen, never be enough. And now she was here, home, loved, chosen not despite her imperfections, but because of everything she was. The journey hadn't been easy. There would still be hard days ahead, Rachel's disapproval, Luna's grief, Ethan's moments of guilt about moving on. But they would face those days together, as a family, because that's what love was. Not the absence of difficulty, but the choice to stay through it, to build something worth fighting for, one day at a time, one brave choice after another. And Mara had never been so grateful for her own courage, for that night in the cafe when she chose to stay instead of run, for every moment since when she chose trust over fear. She'd been chosen. She was enough. She was home. And that was worth everything. The first snow of December came early that year, blanketing everything in white silence. Mara stood at the kitchen window watching Luna build a snowman in the backyard, her daughter's. And yes, she thought of Luna as her daughter now. Laughter echoing through the crisp morning air. It had been just over a year since that terrible night at Rosewood Cafe, and sometimes Mara still couldn't believe this was her life. Coffee's ready, Ethan said, sliding his arms around her waist from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? How different everything is. How a year ago I was convinced I'd be alone forever, and now I'm standing in our kitchen watching our daughter build a snowman. Mara leaned back into his warmth. It feels like a dream sometimes. Best dream I've ever had. He kissed her temple. Though I could do without Rachel calling at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. Mara tensed slightly. What did she want? To inform me that she's coming for Christmas and bringing her new boyfriend. Apparently she wants us all to have dinner together, which is either a peace offering or a setup for disaster. I honestly can't tell which. Ethan sighed. I told her she's welcome to come, but that you're part of this family, and if she can't be civil, she should reconsider. You said that? Mara turned in his arms to look at him. Ethan, she's Claire's sister. I don't want to be the reason you two have a falling out. You're not the reason. Her inability to accept that I'm allowed to move on is the reason. His expression was firm. I've been patient, Mara. I've made excuses for her behavior, tried to understand her grief. But it's been over a year and she still treats you like you're temporary. Like you're not Luna's parent, not my partner, not part of this family, and I'm done with it. Before Mara could respond, Luna burst through the back door in a cloud of cold air and snow. Mara, Dad, come see! I made the snowman look like Mr. Peterson from school with the weird mustache. They bundled up and went outside, and the conversation about Rachel was temporarily forgotten in the chaos of snowball fights and hot chocolate, but it lingered in the back of Mara's mind like an unresolved chord, waiting to resolve into either harmony or discord. The weeks leading up to Christmas were a blur of preparation. Luna insisted on making homemade decorations, which meant their house looked like a craft store had exploded in every room. Mara didn't mind. She loved the chaos, loved the way Luna would appear at her elbow with glitter-covered hands asking for help, loved the normalcy of complaining about finding sequins in her coffee while secretly treasuring every moment. Work at the library was busy with the holiday rush, but Marcus noticed the difference in her. You're different this year, he observed during their lunch break 2 weeks before Christmas. Lighter, like you're not carrying the weight of the world anymore. I'm happy, Mara said simply. Really, genuinely happy. Is that weird? It's wonderful, but also slightly nauseating for those of us still navigating the dating wasteland. Marcus grinned. Seriously, though, I'm glad for you. You deserve this. I'm starting to believe that. Finally. Mara took a bite of her sandwich. Though I'd be lying if I said I wasn't terrified about Christmas. Rachel's coming with her boyfriend, and I have no idea if she's going to be civil or if it's going to be a disaster. What does Ethan say? That he has my back. That Rachel doesn't get to dictate how our family works. But she's still Luna's aunt, still Claire's sister. I don't want to be the wedge that splits them apart. Mara. Marcus set down his food and looked at her seriously. You're not a wedge. You're a bridge. You're the person who helped that family heal, who gave Luna a mother figure, who made Ethan believe in love again. If Rachel can't see that, it's her loss, not yours. His words stayed with Mara as Christmas approached. She bought Rachel a thoughtful gift, a photo album she'd carefully assembled with pictures of Claire and Luna, photos Rachel had probably never seen from Ethan's collection. It was a peace offering, an acknowledgement that Claire's memory was important, that Mara wasn't trying to erase her. This is beautiful, Ethan said when Mara showed it to him on Christmas Eve. Luna was already asleep, visions of presents dancing in her head, and they sat together on the couch, surrounded by half-wrapped gifts and rolls of wrapping paper. Rachel's going to be moved by this. Or she's going to think I'm trying too hard. Mara fidgeted with the ribbon. I just want her to know that I understand, that Claire was important, that she'll always be important, and that I'm not trying to replace her. You've never tried to replace her. You've just loved us, exactly as we are, which is more than enough. Ethan pulled her closer. Whatever happens tomorrow, we face it together. Okay? Okay. Christmas morning arrived with Luna's excited squeals at 6 a.m. They opened presents in their pajamas, a tradition Ethan said Claire had started and that Mara had happily continued. Luna got the art supplies she'd been begging for, a new bike that made her scream with joy, and the complete set of books by her favorite author. Ethan gave Mara a delicate necklace with 3 intertwined circles. For the 3 of us, he explained, his voice thick with emotion. Mara gave him a leather-bound journal for the book he'd mentioned wanting to write about his experience with grief and single parenting. So you can tell your story, she said. Help other people who are going through what you went through. Our story, he corrected, because you're part of it now, the best part. They were cleaning up wrapping paper when the doorbell rang at noon. Luna ran to answer it, and Mara heard Rachel's voice, bright and cheerful in a way that immediately set Mara on edge. Too cheerful. Performative cheerful. Rachel came in with a man Mara assumed was her boyfriend. Tall, handsome in a generic way, clearly uncomfortable. Rachel herself looked different, softer, somehow, less armored. "Mara," Rachel said, and there was something in her voice Mara had never heard before. Uncertainty. "It's good to see you." "You too. Merry Christmas." Mara gestured to the living room. "We just finished opening presents. Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Hot chocolate?" "Coffee would be great, thank you." Rachel's boyfriend, introduced as David, nodded gratefully. The afternoon passed with surprising ease. David was pleasant and clearly adored Rachel, and Rachel herself seemed less hostile than usual. She laughed at Luna's jokes, complimented the decorations, even asked Mara about her work with genuine interest. But there was a tension underneath it all, a sense that something needed to be said but wasn't being said. After dinner, turkey that Mara and Ethan had cooked together while Luna helped by sneaking bites of stuffing, Rachel asked if she and Mara could talk privately. Ethan shot Mara a concerned look, but she nodded. They'd have to face this eventually. They went out to the back porch, bundled in coats against the December cold. The sun was setting, painting the snow-covered yard in shades of pink and gold. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I owe you an apology," Rachel said finally, her breath visible in the cold air. "Actually, I owe you about 100 apologies, but I'm going to start with the biggest one. I've been terrible to you, cruel, judgmental, unfair. And you didn't deserve any of it." Mara wasn't sure what she'd expected, but it wasn't this. "Rachel, Please, let me finish. I need to say this." Rachel turned to face her, and Mara saw tears in her eyes. "When Claire died, I lost my best friend. Not just my sister, my best friend, the person I told everything to, who knew me better than anyone. And when she died, I was so angry. Angry at the universe, at God, at cancer, at Ethan for surviving when she didn't. And then when you came along, I was angry at you too. For replacing her. No, for being what she couldn't be." Rachel's voice broke. "For being alive. For getting to watch Luna grow up, be part of her life, love Ethan. All the things Claire should have gotten to do, and it wasn't fair to hate you for that, but I did anyway." Mara felt tears burning behind her own eyes. "I can't imagine how hard that's been. Watching your sister's family move on without her." "That's just it, though. You haven't moved on without her. You've honored her memory. You've taught Luna that she can love her mom and love you. You've never tried to erase Claire or pretend she didn't exist, and I've been too angry and scared to see that." Rachel wiped at her eyes. "David helped me understand. He lost his wife 5 years ago, has 2 kids. He helped me see that love doesn't diminish love, that Ethan loving you doesn't mean he loved Claire less, that Luna having you as a mother figure doesn't betray her real mother's memory." "Rachel, I would never, I know that now. I should have known it all along, but grief makes you crazy, makes you hold on to things so tight you strangle them." Rachel reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Claire wrote this right before she died. I've been carrying it for 3 years, and I think it's time I shared it with you." With shaking hands, Mara unfolded the paper. It was a letter, written in handwriting that was clearly labored, the letters shaky but determined. "To whoever loves my family after I'm gone, thank you. I know that seems like a strange thing to start with, but it's what I feel most strongly as I write this. Thank you for loving Ethan when I can't anymore. Thank you for being there for Luna when I won't be. Thank you for stepping into this mess of grief and loss and choosing to love them anyway. I'm writing this on what will probably be one of my last good days. The pain is manageable right now. My mind is clear, and I want to say things while I still can. I want you to know that I'm not threatened by you. I'm grateful for you. Whoever you are, whatever you look like, however you came into their lives, you're a gift. Ethan is going to struggle with guilt. He's going to feel like loving you betrays me, like being happy is somehow dishonoring my memory. Please be patient with him. Remind him that love isn't finite, that his heart is big enough to hold me in memory and you in present reality. Remind him that I want him to be happy, that my last wish is for him to find joy again. Luna is going to be confused. She's so young, and she won't fully understand what's happening. She might resent you at first, might compare you to me in ways that hurt. Please don't give up on her. She needs someone to show her that it's okay to move forward, that healing doesn't mean forgetting. Be patient. Be constant. Love her even when she can't love you back. And for yourself, don't let anyone make you feel like you're second best. You're not a replacement. You're a continuation of our family's story. You're the next chapter, and you deserve to be celebrated for being brave enough to love people who are broken. I wish I could meet you. I wish I could thank you in person. But since I can't, I'm trusting Rachel to give you this letter when the time is right. When my family has found you and you've found them, thank you for loving them. Thank you for being their future. Thank you for being everything I can't be. With gratitude and love, Claire. By the time Mara finished reading, she was crying openly. Rachel was crying too, and they stood there on the porch in the December cold, both grieving and healing in the same breath. She knew, Mara whispered. She knew someone would come after her. She hoped someone would. She couldn't stand the thought of them being alone. Rachel smiled through her tears. And I think she'd be really happy it was you. Someone who loves them so completely. Someone who fights for them even when I make it difficult. Why didn't you show me this before? Because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to let go, to accept that Claire was really gone, and that you were really here to stay. But I'm ready now. I'm ready to stop fighting and start accepting that you're part of this family, that you belong here. Rachel held out her hand. I'm sorry, Mara, for everything. Can we start over? Mara took her hand, then pulled Rachel into a hug. We don't need to start over. We just need to move forward, together. They stood there holding each other while the sun finished setting, two women bound by love for the same family, finally finding their way to peace. When they came back inside, Ethan took one look at their tear-stained faces and immediately went into protective mode. What happened? Are you okay? We're fine. Rachel smiled at him, a real smile, warm and genuine. We're better than fine. We're family. The rest of the evening passed in a glow of newfound peace. Rachel asked Mara questions about her work, her childhood, her interests, actually getting to know her as a person rather than viewing her as a threat. David shared stories about his own journey through widowhood and finding love again. Luna fell asleep on the couch between Mara and Rachel, one hand holding each of theirs. After Rachel and David left, Ethan pulled Mara into his arms. What happened out there? Mara told him about the letter, about Rachel's apology, about the breakthrough they'd finally reached. Ethan held her tighter with every word. Claire would have loved you, he said when she finished, would have been so grateful that you found us, that you stayed, that you loved Luna like your own. I do love her like my own. She is my own in every way that matters. I know, and that's why... Ethan pulled back and reached into his pocket. That's why I want to ask you something. Mara's heart stopped as he pulled out a small velvet box. I've been carrying this around for a month, waiting for the right moment, and I realized tonight that there's no such thing as a perfect moment. There's just now and us and the family we've built together. Ethan opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. Mara Collins, will you marry me? Will you officially become Luna's mother and my wife? Will you let me spend the rest of my life showing you how much you're loved and valued and cherished? Yes. The word came out choked with happy tears. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Everything about them fit perfectly, even the imperfect parts. Dad? Mara? Why are you crying? Luna's sleepy voice came from the doorway. She'd woken up and wandered out of her room, rubbing her eyes. Come here, sweetheart. Mara held out her arms, and Luna climbed into her lap. Dad just asked me to marry him. We're going to be a family, officially. Luna's eyes went wide. Really? Like, you'll be my real mom? I'm already your real mom, in all the ways that count. But yes, officially, if that's okay with you. Okay with me? Luna threw her arms around Mara's neck. It's the best thing ever. Can I call you Mom now instead of Mara? Mara looked at Ethan over Luna's head and he nodded, his eyes shining with tears. If you want to, sweetheart, I would be honored. Mom, Luna tested the word, then grinned. Mom, 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 I have a mom again. They stayed up late that night, the three of them, making plans for the wedding and talking about their future. Luna wanted to be the flower girl and insisted that the wedding had to have purple flowers because purple was her favorite color. Ethan wanted something small and intimate, just close friends and family. Mara just wanted to be married to him, didn't care about the details as long as they ended up as a family. When they finally got Luna back to bed, Mara and Ethan lay together in their room, her head on his chest, his fingers playing with her hair. I can't believe this is my life, Mara whispered. A year ago, I was sitting in that cafe, being told I was too fat to love. And now I'm here, engaged to the most amazing man, about to officially become a mother to the most incredible little girl. How did this happen? You chose to stay. That night at the cafe, when every instinct probably told you to run, you chose to stay. And you've kept choosing to stay every day since, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Ethan kissed the top of her head. You're the bravest person I know. I was terrified the entire time. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's doing the thing anyway. He tilted her face up to look at him. You gave us back our future, Mara. You walked into our broken little family and helped us heal. You gave Luna a mother and me a partner, and both of us hoped that we could be happy again. That's not nothing, that's everything. You gave me everything too. You saw me when everyone else looked past me. You chose me when I'd been rejected. You loved me exactly as I am, without asking me to change or be different or be less. You gave me a family when I thought I'd always be alone. So we saved each other. Yeah, we did. They got married that spring in the backyard with purple flowers everywhere, and Luna as the flower girl in a dress she'd helped pick out. Jasmine was Mara's maid of honor, crying through the entire ceremony. Rachel stood up during the reception and gave a speech about how Claire would have loved Mara, how grateful she was that Luna had such an incredible mother figure, how happy she was that Ethan had found love again. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. But the moment Mara would remember forever came during their first dance. As they swayed to the music, Luna wiggled her way between them, and without missing a beat, they adjusted to include her. The three of them dancing together, a family bound not by blood but by choice, by love, by the brave decision to keep showing up for each other. I love you, Ethan whispered. I love you too, Mom, Luna added. I love you both so much. Mara felt tears on her cheeks but didn't bother wiping them away. These were happy tears, earned tears, tears that came from a heart so full it had to overflow. Later that night, after the guests had left and Luna was asleep in her room, exhausted from dancing and cake, Mara stood in the backyard looking up at the stars. Ethan found her there, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. What you thinking about? That night at Rosewood Cafe, how Damon said I'd never find anyone if I didn't change, didn't lose weight, didn't become someone different. Mara leaned back against Ethan's chest. How he was wrong about everything. I didn't have to change. I just had to find someone who saw me for who I really am. And who you really are is pretty spectacular. I'm learning to believe that. Finally, she turned to face him. Thank you for being the person who helped me see it, for being at that cafe that night, for standing up for me when you didn't have to, for asking me to stay. Thank you for saying yes, for taking a chance on a broken widower and his traumatized kid, for building a life with us even when it was messy and complicated and Rachel made it difficult. Ethan cupped her face in his hands. I told you that night that you were beautiful, that Damon was just too shallow to see it. I meant it then, and I mean it even more now. You're beautiful, Mara Ward, inside and out, and I'm the luckiest man alive because I get to love you. Mara Ward, she repeated, testing her new name. I like the sound of that. Me too. Sounds like home. And it was home. Not the house, though that was full of love and laughter and Luna's artwork covering every available surface. Not the town or the street or the physical space. Home was this, standing under the stars with the man she loved, knowing their daughter slept safely inside, knowing they'd built something real and lasting from the ashes of tragedy and rejection. Home was choosing each other every single day. Home was believing she deserved to be chosen. Home was love in all its messy, complicated, absolutely perfect glory. Years later, when Luna was 16 and working on a school project about formative moments, she'd interview Mara about that night at the cafe. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd left instead of staying?" Luna would ask. "If you'd let Damon chase you away?" "All the time," Mara would answer honestly. "I think about how close I came to running, to letting fear and shame make my decisions. And I'm so grateful I stayed. Not just because I found your dad, but because I found myself. I found the courage to believe I was worth loving. And now you help other people find that courage." Luna would gesture to the book on the table, the memoir Mara had published about body image, rejection, and finding love in unexpected places. It had become a bestseller, helped thousands of people struggling with similar issues. "I try because I remember how alone I felt that night, how convinced I was that Damon was right, that I'd never be enough. And if my story can help even one person feel less alone, it's worth sharing." Dad says you're the bravest person he knows. Your dad's biased. Maybe. But he's also right. But all of that was still in the future. On this spring night, newly married and surrounded by love, Mara simply stood in her backyard with her husband's arms around her and let herself feel the full weight of her joy. She'd been rejected for being too much, too big, too different, too imperfect for someone as shallow as Damon. And that rejection had led her here, to people who loved her not in spite of her imperfections, but as a complete package, to a family that chose her daily, to a little girl who called her mom, to a man who'd proven over and over that she was worth fighting for. Sometimes the worst moments of your life really do become the doorway to everything you've been waiting for. Sometimes cruelty paves the way for kindness. Sometimes rejection leads to the deepest acceptance you've ever known. And sometimes a single dad at the next table walks over and changes your entire life. "Ready to go inside?" Ethan asked, kissing her temple. "Ready." Mara took his hand and together they walked back to their home, their family, their future. She'd been told she wasn't enough, but here, in this life she'd built one brave choice at a time, she'd discovered the truth. She'd always been enough. She just needed to find people who could see it. And now, finally, she could see it too. The end.